Hi all, this is Hatari, and today I'll be discussing President Trump's COVID-19 related executive actions that were ordered on August 8th. This is my first video like this, and I thought it might be interesting to provide a relatively quick breakdown of legal and policy issues in the news. As you can see, I'm a fairly mediocre Warzone player, but this was an 11-kill game, so I hope you have fun watching. Please feel free to drop any feedback in the comments. So, what did the White House do, and what was the legal basis for the actions? As you may know, Congress is considering the next round of coronavirus relief efforts, and while the House Democrats have passed a bill, no broader agreement has been reached between the House, Senate, and White House. Even now, negotiations are continuing. With no clear resolution in sight, the Trump administration issued 4 executive actions and claimed to be taking decisive steps in the face of Congress's failure to act. Many congressional figures from all sides of the political aisle claimed that it was an unconstitutional action. These orders touched on topics ranging from additional money for unemployment to student loans. Ultimately, what the orders actually do doesn't quite match up with the rhetoric from the administration or the critics. From the jump, one of the EOs doesn't have any immediate effect on individuals. Instead, the EO directs certain government agencies, such as HHS, CDC, the FHFA, to consider and review what actions they could take to support people's housing situation. This is within the President's authority, as they are simply directing agencies to review and consider potential actions. However, it's not clear when or if these reviews will result in tangible action. The next 2 are separate, but have similar direct impacts. These are deferrals on student loan payments and payroll taxes. For student loans, the Secretary of Education will take steps to extend the current federal student loan payment deferral to December 31st. It's important to note that this only applies to federal loans, and unless you have a subsidized federal loan, interest will continue to accrue. A potential wrinkle is that this is being done under the economic hardship provision of the law. This provision limits eligibility to borrowers below a certain income level, or who satisfy guidelines set out by the Secretary that use income and debt-to-income ratio as the primary factors. At the same time, a memorandum from the White House also makes reference to waivers. An existing law allows the Secretary of Education to modify interest rates, to modify the time of payment, and to waive all government claims. This is the same provision that some argued would have allowed President Warren to forgive federal student loans across the board. In this case, it would be used in a much more limited fashion to postpone the payment. Payroll tax decision is a bit more straightforward from a legal standpoint. The law explicitly allows the Treasury Secretary to defer payments for certain taxes, and the administration has elected to do that for payroll taxes. For those wondering what payroll taxes are, on your pay stub, we're talking about FICA taxes. Those are the taxes that go towards Social Security and Medicare. But while it's an easy legal assessment, there are serious policy and practical concerns at play. These taxes will still eventually come due after December 31st. People and businesses don't prepare, especially small businesses that may not have a regular tax attorney to consult. Then they will likely have an unwelcome surprise come January 1st when they find out that they now owe 4 months of payroll taxes. This could create an immediate crisis in the early days of a Biden administration, or renewed fireworks in a continued divided government under Trump, as a decision needs to be made whether to pass a new law to completely forgive the taxes or to hold firm and demand payment. These payroll taxes go towards Medicare and Social Security, so any forgiveness will need to be made up with other revenue. And this brings us to the final and most controversial order: $400 week payments to supplement unemployment. The White House has portrayed this as a unilateral action by the President to supplement unemployment. Opponents have called it an unconstitutional affront to the separation of powers. The truth is somewhere in between. So let's start with the basics. Under the U.S. Constitution, Congress has the power of the purse. Accordingly, Article 1, Section 9 states, "No money shall be drawn from the Treasury but in consequence of appropriations made by law." Therefore, the president can't just conjure money out of air like Congress can, but he can work within authorities already provided to him by Congress, using money that has been appropriated for such purposes. So let's look at the order. The White House invokes the Stafford Act, a law passed in 1988 to streamline federal disaster response systems. Trump specifically invokes Provision 42 U.S.C. 5174E2. The key language here is that it comes as a result of a major disaster, and it is to address personal property, transportation, and other necessary expenses or serious needs. In this case, COVID has already been declared a major disaster, so he's checked that box. The question then becomes, does the supplemental unemployment payment constitute a payment for personal property, transportation, or other necessary expenses or serious needs? In a vacuum, it seems like a very strong argument could be made the additional unemployment benefits are a payment for necessary expenses and serious needs incurred by people out of work due to COVID-19. However, statutory interpretation doesn't happen in a vacuum. There is another section of the Stafford Act that directly addresses unemployment benefits. This provision says that the unemployment assistance can only be used if an individual is not eligible for other employment programs. Because Trump's program is premised on giving money to those already on unemployment, they should not be eligible for this Stafford Act provision. The existence of this section makes it much more likely that the personal property, transportation, and other necessary expenses do not include added unemployment benefits, because Congress addressed unemployment in another section of the same law, and thus can't just be rolled into the broader definition. The challenge for the White House will be to explain why these benefits aren't unemployment insurance. This is likely why the executive order calls it a lost wage assistance program and not an unemployment benefit. That might just be a distinction without a difference under the law, but it's also not clear that there will be anyone with both the standing to bring a legal challenge and the political will to do so, meaning the program will go into effect. But there are still serious policy concerns with the program. First, the Stafford Act requires a 75-25 split. That means for a $400 payment, the feds pay $300 and the state pays $100. This comes as state tax revenues have significantly fallen while their expenditures have gone up due to COVID-19. They can't borrow money like the federal government can, and these economic waves have put a strain on many state budgets. As a result, while some states will embrace the program, many others will turn it down, and their citizens will get no benefit. Additionally, the program would allow for up to $44 billion from the disaster relief fund to be paid to the program. As of the end of July, the disaster relief fund had about $70 billion in it. And while $44 billion seems like a lot of money, experts forecast that it could be depleted in as little as 5 weeks. This comes during a hurricane season that is on pace to be one of the worst in recorded history, likely increasing the strain on the disaster relief fund as FEMA responds to hurricane damage throughout the country. Now, it's important to remember the $600 payments that were added on top of normal unemployment from the CARES Act have been a lifesaver for many families, and losing them at the end of July without any replacement could be catastrophic. As a result, it may be worth the risk to the disaster relief fund in order to protect as many families as possible from the economic disaster resulting from COVID-19. If Congress can reach a deal and appropriate the funding separately, that would alleviate the statutory and policy changes here. However, Congress seems to be caught in an impasse. Democrats want it to remain at $600, and Republicans want to completely cut it or reduce it significantly, even below what this Trump program would do. Interestingly, this does raise a question of what else could be declared a major disaster under the Stafford Act. The definition is fairly broad and includes environmental problems. A future president, it seems, could declare climate change a major disaster and drive funding to people through the provision being invoked by the Trump administration here. Now, it would still be subject to the same 75-25 split that this one is, but it opens up a lot of possibilities for future president to try and address climate change, and more creative thinking about what programs are available to them. So to recap, there's a lot of bluster around President Trump's executive actions, but ultimately, they're questions of statutory, not constitutional authority. For 3 of them, the answer is clear. The president can take the actions. The unemployment insurance payment, it's a much grayer question, and it depends on how you interpret the Stafford Act. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this overview. If you have ideas for future topics, let me know. I'm considering Trump's ban of TikTok or Epic Games' antitrust lawsuit against Apple and Google next. In the meantime, please like and subscribe and share this video with others interested in learning a bit more about the White House's COVID-19 executive action.
Only 10 remain standing.